What's up, humans? I'm Enzo with Frequency, and today we're going to discuss the differences between the I and the I am presence. So let's get into it. If you think about it, you will see that our personalities, egos, are all made up of a bunch of I's. I'm a mom, I'm a dad, I'm spiritual, I'm happy, I'm a business owner, I'm whatever. All kinds of different things that we identify ourselves with. And then we have these little sayings for when we don't like one of our I's. And when we don't want to associate that particular I with ourselves, well, then we'll say things such as, I just wasn't myself, or I haven't been myself lately. Well, then who were you? Think about that simple question for a moment. Who are you referring to that is inside yourself, is yourself, but you don't want to claim as yourself? If that wasn't you, who was that? Now then, we also like to say things like, I'm a good person. Well, compared to what? What is it exactly that determined you are a good person? And what was it comparing a good person to? Since technically, good is subjective based on the observer's perspective. Now, for those who have yet to become free thinkers, good will absolutely be defined by what they are told is good. But if you are now thinking for yourself, then these questions are relevant, because these are the things that we need to start understanding for a better perspective of ourselves and each other. Now, the truth is, when we say I wasn't myself, you were indeed a facet of your ego self. You just didn't like that version of you, but denying that version of you isn't going to make it not so. You acted that way, that was you. I saw it. But there is a plot twist, and that is that true, it really was only your false character. Now, all of that right there was really just to get your wheels turning and get you thinking about your own eyes with a different perspective. Because the various eyes that we believe we are is all the ego's different costumes that it has to play the game of 3D life. For example, we act one way at work, another way with family, and even a different way with best friends. So whatever I best suits the situation, that's the costume personality we wear. The ego is all about the I. The ego actually is the I. It is that part of us that we believe is us, but in reality is not. And this is how the ego survives and thrives, and this is how it makes itself real. The ego has no idea that it's a fraud. It's kind of like an actor in a movie. Now, just like a person, it has a character to portray, and the actor's job is to bring that character to life. Your ego is you, the character. Now, we have some incredible actors that do their job very well, but the greatest actor that ever walked the earth is still nothing in comparison to the immaculate acting capabilities of the ego in each and every one of us. And look, I know there's a lot of discussion on killing off the ego. Now, most people believe that some sort of ego death must occur. I agree and disagree with this idea, and here's why. Maybe killing the ego isn't the way to think about it. We have the ego for a reason. It's not that we have to kill it off, which, I don't know, is really a futile effort. At least it was when I tried. Because my ego was so clever that when I decided to try and kill it, it helped me plan out its own death and then wanted to take the credit for its own demise, and such as the ego. Always wants to be a star of the show. But another way to think about the ego is this. You do realize that without it, none of this would have been possible. Meaning, all these lifetimes that we have had that are filled with all these experiences and different lessons literally could not have ever happened without the ego, because it is 100% the ego that allows humanity to experience duality, which was part of the point. Now, we did not come to Earth with the sole purpose of overcoming and killing the very thing that makes this an experience and gives us the ability to even have this reality. So, if you could take a step back for a moment and view this from a higher vantage point, meaning just take a different perspective, and let's look at the ego itself and what it was actually designed for. It is a phenomenal creation. I mean, the divine did an amazing job on the ego, despite the fact it is also the very thing that allows us to be so dumb. However, all that said, we really do have to transcend the ego, but it may be easier to overcome if you fully understand it and make peace with it. We do have to keep the ego in its place. that is a servant of the master within. The ego is not the master, and humanity has reversed that for a long time now. And we've all seen those results. So this is something that must be reconciled within each of us, but at least acknowledge the part that it does play here for the existence on Earth. And let's be honest, it has served you well. Plus, it's not like we can go around introducing ourselves as our higher selves, because that would probably be awkward. So the ego does have its place. Anyway, contemplate this idea for a moment. We're about to discuss the I Am presence. Now, this is going to be done in a few different ways. Some may seem a little redundant, but my goal is to present this in a way that everyone who watches can understand. So these are simply perspectives only intended to help you wrap your own head around your I Am presence. So the I Am presence can be considered the architect of your reality, the creator of it, because the I Am presence is the part of you that is directly connected to the creator. We are source energy beings, individualized in form. This is what we are. Now, the various eyes that we use, our ego and all its costumes, is what is experiencing your creative reality, which comes from the power behind your I Am presence. We create our reality with our thoughts, and whether you realize this or not, and regardless if you're spiritual or not, you are the creator of all that you experience. Your thoughts 100% are creating all that you encounter, good or bad. So a part of you is creating your reality by the energy of your thought forms. This is the I Am presence. And another part of you, the I or the ego, is experiencing the reality you create. Make sense? Let me say this another way. Now, I'm going to explain why this is possible and what all this is really about in the most basic, elementary way I can. I do know that some of this can get confusing, and we are looking for simplicity here. So, you are God. You are not the totality of God, but you are an actual part of God. And this is known as a source energy being. God being the creator, source being where all this comes from. Energy is the universal generator that makes things move and come to be, and we are a being from that source energy. So let's look at a simple analogy. Think of a windshield on a car. Now think of throwing a brick into that windshield. And picture the glass fragmenting into a bunch of smaller pieces. Now, walk up to the windshield, take one fragment of the broken windshield out. There you are. That windshield as a whole is God. Now, just because you, a small piece of glass, is removed from the whole windshield, it does not make you any less a part of that windshield. You are still part of the windshield. Only now you are a fractal piece of glass of the whole windshield. So at this point, our Mother, Father, God, the windshield, gives you some free will along with some unique traits and gifts. Then it sends you out into the dark to see what you can learn all by yourself as an individualized piece of glass. But since you are still actually a part of the whole windshield, which is the all-knowing creator, the only way for you to truly experience life was to make you forget that you ever were part of that windshield. So by giving you a personality and a veil and calling it the ego, now God, the windshield, as a whole, could experience itself through your individual experiences without already knowing the outcome of everything that will happen. And so, the journey of the piece of glass begins. Now, that little piece of glass lives through many experiences known as lifetimes. And currently, it experiences a thing called duality on the physical plane. But after many lifetimes of learning, eventually the little piece of glass must remember that it is part of something more than itself. And when it does start to wake up and remember this, this is called a spiritual awakening. And now the little glass starts to trek back home to find its way to the whole windshield. And this is called the journey. It's the journey of a fragmented piece of glass back home to its mother, father windshield with all its learned individual experiences. And the way it finds its way back is called the path. And there are many of them. So here we are, a bunch of fragmented pieces of glass that completely forgot when we are all together, we form an entire windshield. And all of us together is known as the collective. This is why we have real power, because we are an actual piece of Source itself. And Source itself is the supreme power. We are that Source's sons and daughters. And this is why our thoughts have this power to create what we want. And unmonitored and not understood, they also have the power to create what we don't want. So while we look at ourselves as an independent little piece of glass, we're actually still part of the entire windshield. Now let's get back on track and peel back some more layers of the I am. Now whether you call it the I am presence, your God presence, your intuition, or some weird name that you just made up because it sounds like a wizard, none of that really matters. The important thing to note here is the I am inside of us is a fractal of the Creator itself that is hiding from itself, pretending to be a bunch of eyes in order to get to know itself and experience its own creations without any exceptions. I know, it gets weird, but it also makes perfect sense. Now, if you think of the Creator as the maze builder, now the maze builder that creates worlds and is all-knowing, the maze builder would obviously know everything there was to know about the mazes and the experiences within them since it made them. But each created maze or world has unlimited potential for different experiences, and each created being that inhabits a world has an infinite amount of possibility to create those experiences. Now, as much as we categorize ourselves as humans and then like to box ourselves into these categories, that's really unfortunate, because no one will ever walk your exact path, because no one will ever share your every thought, perspective, and the choices that you make. That's immaculately unique to each individual, and each individual experience is equally important. Yeah, I think we have roughly 8 billion souls here on earth, and all of us are a part of the whole. Now think about it this way: if you had a puzzle with 8 billion pieces and you get it all together except for one piece, would you say that puzzle is complete? I know someone out there just said that's good enough, but no, it's not complete. And we are that puzzle. So this is a collective effort for the assembly of said puzzle. Now, let's think of this I am in yet another way. Specifically the phrase, I am that I am. There's more than one way to understand this statement, but when the Creator manifests a creation, let's say beauty. Now, beauty may show itself in the physical reality as a lily. I think lilies look awesome, so we're rolling with lilies. But a couple different things happen when this manifested lily appears. One, the Creator can look upon it and it knows that this flower is the idea or thought of beauty manifested into form. Now, if you take away the identification of the lily and just gaze upon it as pure beauty manifested, then this is one example of what beauty looks like. Thoughts become things, or word became flesh. They mean the same thing. And this is the ground level of all of creation. First comes a thought, then comes the energy behind it, and the result is the thing, the manifestation. Now, the other thing that happens is the Creator can look upon its creation and understand that it is that flower. Since the Creator is in and is everything, it can look upon that flower and say, I am that, comma, I am. And that lily and the Creator are one and the same. And this process continues over and over an infinite amount of times. Welcome to the universe, which is really just a small portion of another universe that is also a small portion of an even greater universe, and so on. But this concept is how the Creator, Source, experiences itself in everything, by breaking itself into pieces while remaining the whole. Now, the I am is always there in every being and in everything. Now, in the case of humanity, the I am, God, is hiding in the background, underneath the ego. Now, another thing to understand about the I am is that it's a command, a supreme command, in fact. Now, if you understand the axiom, as above, so below, you understand that humans are essentially a physical form, mimicked version of the universe itself. And we are essentially little guys in training with the lack of knowledge on how to control our powers here in third density. Why you think they call this a school? But the problem is, most people are unconscious that this is even going on. So they're basically running around using their superpowers without even knowing that they have powers. And when we declare, I am this or I am that, we are sending out a powerful command to the universe to give us that which we are declaring we are. And the universe will make whatever is necessary possible to fulfill the requests of the many gods' desires. Because the many gods, us, are still pieces of the supreme experience in itself. Now, awakening to this realization of your very own I am presence is obviously a crucial aspect to attain liberation. How can you attain God consciousness if you don't realize that you are already a part of God and that you are co-creating a mini world already? This knowledge is also how we change the world. The more people that come to the understanding of the difference in the I and the I am will realize the amazing experience and experiment that we are taking part of here on planet Earth. And more so, the more people that understand their thoughts become actual things and that what they create, they will absolutely experience themselves, universal law of the circle, then people will be more conscious of the thought forms they allow to manifest. And I'm pretty sure that this is what is meant in the Bible with eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It means that exactly what you create with the power of your thought forms, you will 100% experience yourself. And what you create always, without fail, starts as a thought and then becomes a thing. Now, if we go back to the earlier example of the creator manifesting beauty and form and a lily appearing, what do you think thoughts of hate, violence, and thoughts that are harmful to others will look like? I mean, look around the world as the so-called news portrays, and there you will see exactly what those thought forms look like manifested into human behavior. Or if we want to take it even further, if the creator manifested beauty and form and a lily came to be, could that also mean that beauty's opposite manifested could show up as, say, a poisonous plant or a briar patch? Just something to think about. We are responsible for what is created on this planet. You are personally responsible for everything you create in your own little world. And understanding that is liberating in itself. Now, if you can truly understand that you are a bunch of made-up personalities, a bunch of eyes, and so is everyone else. If you have an I am presence, and that is your connection and your link to the Creator, so does everyone else. If you are a fractal of the Creator, experiencing itself, so is everyone else. You weren't the only little piece of glass that was taken from the whole windshield after it was fragmented, which means we are literally all part of the same thing, the same source. And when this is comprehended, you can really start to peel back the layers and understand how to love your enemies. It's not that we don't love that being. You, me, and that person are all the same under the ego. It's that we don't like that I or that personality that is being portrayed by that character. This is why on the cross, Yeshua said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Truth is, for the average person, the one who is yet to understand these things or is yet to wake up, they really don't know what they're doing. And no amount of earthly intellect will change that. Because even those of us who are awake are still learning how to use these things. None of us are fully aware of our own power. And most people are certainly not aware that their life is hard because of their thoughts. So for those of us who have came into these understandings, and as hard as it may be at times, it is beneficial for us to keep this in the back of our mind when dealing with difficult people who are still sleeping. Truth is, they just don't know better at the moment. And let's be honest, there was a time when you and I didn't know any better either. Now, your very own I am presence is your lifeline to the divine. Nurture it. Your eyes that you put on to play the game are servants. Keep them in perspective and in their rightful place. There's liberation in this understanding. Because just as the Creator can manifest thought into form and gaze upon it and say, I am that I am, at some point we must look back and metaphorically face that windshield that we originally came from and know, I am that windshield. I am. So I hope this video has been helpful with getting you more in tune with who you really are, your I am versus who you pretend to be on the stage of life, the ego. If you have any questions, leave a comment or shoot me a message and I'll respond. Next Thursday, we will discuss freedom and why it's a foreign concept here to planet Earth. I genuinely appreciate you spending a few of your earthly moments here with me today, and I wish you well on your travels. Until next time, peace profound.